a Motorsport Podcast Network production.
Welcome along. It's time for another mini metal podcast on the V8 Sleuth podcast for the Diecast Detective. The detective himself is in the building. Welcome to you. We're going to talk Sandown because, of course, the Penrite All Sandown 500 is coming up. It's not the 500 that we normally are used to in Melbourne, but nevertheless, we've still got supercars at Sandown, and there's plenty of model cars over the journey in Diecast from Sandown 500, Sandown Sprint rounds. There's a bit of everything to talk about here.
There is, Noons. Great to be on the show, and even better to be talking about my favourite circuit on the calendar.
Oh, come on. You're just saying that because you know it's my little favourite as well. But let's make it our favourite for today. There's so much to talk about. Just quickly, before we get into Sandown cars, eras, makes, models, values, non-values, what is the Diecast Detective website now up to? Are you over 15,000 cars in the back end of that thing yet?
By the end of November, we will have hit 15,000.
Oh, nice. Cupcakes all around?
Indeed, we will celebrate, and we will also hit 95,000 verified sales by the end of the month.
And none of those, well, maybe some of those might be mine. I'm not sure if they've managed to sneak in the system. I can't tell you what my buying habits would be because that would give the game away to everybody of what I've got and what I would like to get. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's talk Sandown. And there's so many cars that spring to mind from the 500, from V8 supercars, Australian touring car racing. But when you wind back, what is the first Sandown model car, as in a specific Sandown car rather than a championship season car that raced at Sandown? What's the first Sandown specific one that came on the market? Because I'm actually not sure.
It's the 1964 Alan Moffat, John Layton Cortina from the Sandown 6-Hour International.
That's going back just a little bit.
Well, I believe that's the very first event there. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, that was the 6-hour. That's what kind of started the whole Sandown touring car thing that became, the 3-hour, the 400, the 500. It really starts way back there with Alan Moffat in that Cortina and the little Alpha that won that race with Dr. Roberto Bussanello and Ralph Sachs. And if you've been listening to the Sleuth Pod, you'll know that there's a little bit of history with that car through one of the guests on our podcast, Richard Emery, who's the head of Hino Trucks now. His dad owned that car for some time, not back in the day when it won, but in the years afterwards. But when you actually think about it, that's the earliest car, 64 Sandown race, but the first Sandown specific model on the market was, so that Cortina came out in 07, but if you go back to 2002, you can get the cars that finished the 2001 season at Sandown in the event that many people will remember was called the V8 Ultimate, which was sponsored, I think, by Better Electrical at the time. And it was the final round of the V8 Championship here in Melbourne.
That's right, Aaron. So it was the Scaife and Bright cars from that 2001 event. And they were actually one of 4 different versions of the 2001 HRT car produced by Auto Art that year. And they all kind of look a bit similar. So look for the Siemens advertising above the front door on those cars to identify them as the V8 Ultimate cars.
Yeah, nice spot.
Were produced each.
They had a lot of success and history at that time, the Holden Racing team, so they kind of could pick pretty much any race was a win that they could replicate a car from. So you could definitely churn out plenty of cars. And back in those days, they definitely did that. But if you're looking for some value in the year's sense, what is the most valuable race-winning Sandown model to keep our eyes on out there that might be, I don't know, flukily might go cheap at a flea market, or someone might sell one not quite understanding what they've got? What's the thing we've got to keep an eye on?
Well, you'd be lucky to find one even on eBay, let alone a flea market, and that's the 1990 Glenn Seaton George Fury Sierra. So it's the Peter Jackson liveried car, which they won the race with in 1990. That was an Apex release, but Aaron, there were only 372 made, and you'd be lucky to see 2 sales a year for that car, and we've only had one so far this year.
So no one wants to give those things up. They're rare as hen's teeth, and Cedo fans are not parting with those Sierras, that's for sure.
And if you can get someone to part with it, Aaron, we've seen a peak price of $1,500.
Whoa.
The single sale this year was just under $1,200, and we're currently valuing those cars $1,250. So get one for, I think, less than $1,500. You're doing well at the moment.
It's good buying. It's one to definitely have. That's definitely been a value setter. Now, there's always highs and there's always lows. Now, what is the least value? I mean, we talk on this pod often, Detective, about the fact that usually the values for cars come as a combination of famous drivers, winning big famous races like Bathurst, also their scarcity. The small production numbers are always handy, and that Sierra is one of those. When I look at the least valuable Sandown winning model, it's the 1969 Alan Moffat John French GDHO Falcon that won what was called the Datsun 3 Hour back in those days. Why is that the least valuable? Is it because there's just a truckload of them, or what's the story?
So there were only 504 made, but it is a relatively recent release. It was 2022. So we find with newer releases, they haven't really had the time to sort of appreciate in value. But I think it's also a case here of the race itself isn't really one that fans of the sport are probably all that aware of, and doesn't hold that much credibility with the fan base. It's not a Bathurst winner. It's not a straight 500 winner. It is, as you say, the Datsun 3 Hour trophy race winner, which is slightly random. So that's only a $250 car, which is just below the recommended retail price of $289 when it was released.
The great thing about that car, though, is that is Alan Moffat's first factory Falcon winner. I mean, he won a lot of races in factory Falcons in the years that followed, particularly at Bathurst, but that is the car that kind of in the win that really started he and the Ford Motor Company's winning history together from that very point onwards. So I kind of thought maybe that would have a bit more love, but maybe as time goes on and, as you say, since it was released, there maybe is that little bit more of the appreciation. We talk often too, diecastdetective.com.au, the website. You can subscribe now. You can do a free trial to, sample it, test drive it, get a feel for it, and then decide to, what, I'm going to drive full time and get in the seat for the rest of the year. You can track the values of your collection. You can keep an eye on what's popping up for sale. You can actually literally track your own collection because you can put these cars into a virtual garage essentially and keep an eye on what you've got and what you don't got. It gets hard after a while when you're a collector. It stops you from having to go and look at the cabinet or wherever you've got your boxes situated to remember exactly what you've got. But we've talked about this before. These values that you're discussing on the mini metal pods, how are you arriving at those numbers? What is it that's generating those values, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent?
So we receive sale prices from all different platforms, whether it be eBay, which is primarily we get the majority of our sales results from, but also private auctions, auction houses, private sales. And what we do is put that all into our database and we run statistical analysis of those sale prices. And it is based on conditions. So new and used are split. And we basically create a trend profile for each model, and that spits out what we call the Diecast Detective price. And so it does take into account the history of the model and also where we see the market trending to give a current figure. So when you save your collection in your virtual collection within Diecast Detective, it automatically updates whenever there is a change in value, which is constant. It happens multiple times throughout the day. And so your collection is always up to date with the most recent and relevant price.
One of the things too that it's handy for from experience, because I am a Diecast Detective website user and have an account, insurance. That's important. If you're going to try to track what you've got, what it's worth, what you've got it insured for, this is a really handy tool to be able to assist you with that as well. I was thinking about this episode a little while ago when I went to the Bend for the 500 supercars race in September, because in the welcome center at the track, they had a few different cars with 500 Sandown histories. And one of them is Mark Winterbottom's Pepsi Max Crew Falcon. that won the championship in 2015, but won the Sandown 500 as part of that with Steve Owen as the co-driver. Now, I was thinking about this show and thinking about that car. Those two things come together in this conversation now. So where does that sit? Is that when it's 10 years on, it's not that long ago, oh, gee, it's Frosty's only championship winning season. Is that valuable? Not valuable? Going to be valuable? What's the story with that car? Because I saw the 1-to-1. I'd like to know about the 1-to-18.
So it's had a bit of a resurgence recently. It was trading well below $200 for a very long period of time. So this model was released in 2022. But it has now, as I said, had a resurgence, and it's back up to its recommended retail price of $250. So it's been on a journey, and it's spud.
It's like playing the stock market. You put your money in and then you lose a bit and then you just go, well, you know what? We're going to have to hang here and wait for it to recover. So stocks are going good. Don't forget, Mark Winterbottom's book is out now by the V8 Sleuth Superstore if you haven't picked up a copy. Let's move on to the next topic, Detective. The most valuable non-winning Sandown cars. Now, I would have thought, as you said earlier, Sandown, okay, it's not Bathurst. It's got a special place in the hearts of lots of Aussie motor racing fans. But I would have thought it'd be a stretch to get some value out of a Sandown 500 car that didn't win the race, or a Sandown car that wasn't a winning car at Sandown. But strangely enough, how is it that the runner-up car to the Mark Winterbottom car, that is the sister Pepsi Max car, which was Chaz Mostert and Cam Waters 4 weeks before Chaz wrapped it around a concrete wall and a marshal's post, how is it that that car is pulling more money than the winning car?
Yeah, this is a clear outlier. So the highest price paid for any non-winning Sandown related car is $699 for that Mostert Waters runner-up car.
We don't have the info to know, though. Was it Chaz or Cam who bought it? Maybe they inflated the figure because they really wanted one.
That's right. Look, it is a one-off sale. So it clearly is an outlier, and there is no reason to believe that is part of a future trend or anything. But yeah, that is the one-off.
Okay, that's a one-off, but basing it on the Diecast Detective price, it's a bit of a cool mixture of cars here. Let's go 3, 2, 1, 3 up to 2, up to 1. So the third most valuable non-winning Sandown car is not a Holden, it's not a Ford, it's not Peter Brock, it's not Alan Moffat. It's Murray Carter's Valentine RX-7 Mazda. Why is this so?
I think for exactly that reason. It isn't a Ford. It isn't a Holden. It's something different. And I think everyone's collection needs something a bit different to make it stand out. We've all got our Fords, all got Holdens. But when you've got something that's a different shape, and it's a pretty cool livery too, I think it makes all the difference to the look of a collection. So this one, it's quite tight, 2 sales per year, so you might struggle to find one, but it's not super expensive. It's a $400 peak price car, and we're pegging it at $400 at the moment in terms of Diecast Detective price, and $280 for used. It's down 4% this year, Aaron, so there's probably a little bit of value in that one.
Well, now that we've told the world, they're probably going to jump on board, so keep an eye on where those percentages go. Number 2 is a favourite of the Australian motor racing scene. He hasn't raced since the year that this car is based on, Norm Beachy's Monaro GTS 350. This is the version of the car from 1972 that wasn't even a winner in the Melbourne Cup. It finished, and I don't mean the horse race, by the way, it was a Melbourne Cup at Sandown. It was a third-place finish car, and this was a way for Classic Collectables to get that Norm Beachy model tooling and get another Norm Beachy Monaro model.
That's right. They milked another $1,500 out of this one. And it is also a $400 car at the moment. It's up 3% this year. It's a great looking car, Aaron. So can see why there's actually been a bit of movement on Norm Beachy Monaros recently. We've seen some really big prices pushing $900 for his championship winner. And there's a lot of interest in him at the moment, which is quite interesting.
One of the things about Norm is he doesn't do many, he doesn't do media, and he doesn't really do too many motorsport public appearances, though he did come to the Winton Festival of Speed earlier in the year and was one of the absolute hits at the V8 Sleuth Open night on the Saturday night at the track. So a lot of love for Norm and that car. But number one for most valuable non-winning Sandown cars is a car that we actually discussed a little earlier on, in fact, right at the front of the pod. It's Scafey's 2001 HRT V8 Ultimate car. So clearly the cachet of Mark, the Golden Child, HRT, the early era of model production has really held the course and is really, well, it's really done well in value.
Yeah, this one has, and we should put an asterisk on this one because this segment is about non-winning cars. But as you will remember, Aaron, Scafey did in fact win one of the 3 races at the V8 Ultimate event that weekend. It's just that the model itself isn't billed as a winner by the Anti-Auto Art, so hence why it makes the list. But it is a very low volume seller. We've only seen one sale this year, and it was for a signed version. It's a tricky one to get your hands on. So, yeah, if you've got one in your collection, expect it to be above $400, probably around the $410 to $430 mark, and it has peaked at $500 back in 2023.
Okay, so that's still pretty solid. And for those playing along at home, Todd Kelly was the round winner. That was back in the day where the points added up through the 3 races and the podium was decided by the points. So therefore, the win, as you said, Detective, yes, Scaife won a race, but Todd Kelly won the round overall to be the winner as it was. Now, this is a segment as part of the pod on Mini Metal that I always feel bad about, but there are models that have lost their shine. Now, these happen for various reasons, but Sandown models that have lost their shine, and at number 3, on the list of 3, they are all big names of the sport. So it's kind of like that someone has to lose type thing. You can't all be winners. But the Sandown models that have lost their shine, at number 3, the Craig Lowndes Warren Luff Red Bull Commodore VF. At number 2, I'm staggered and appalled by this and disgusted. Alan Moffat's Holden dealer team Commodore, the one-off car that he drove as teammate to Peter Brock in 1980 and finished 3rd. That's second on the list of losing its shine. I cannot believe it. And number 1 is the Scott McLaughlin Alex Prema Falcon from 2018, the FGX. Remember, they ran a slightly retro livery with the Shell Pecton modified on that car. It wasn't a winning car. How is it that 3 of the superstars of the sport have got cars that are losing their shine, Detective? Please explain.
I think because they did peak early and they've now settled back to a more reasonable price level. And that's certainly the case with the McLaughlin Prema car, because if you consider that out of the 3 is the one with the special livery, there was quite a bit of interest in that vehicle when it first was released. And now it's settled back to, from a peak of $699 in 2022 to now being a $250 car, which is essentially the recommended retail price. So I think sometimes collectors go out hard with new releases, and then over time they can settle back into sort of a more standardized pricing level. And that's what's happened here.
And I presume too that when you stop and ponder it, that in 2018, obviously there was still quite a bit of McLaughlin winning to do. So people, okay, that's a one-off livery, that's exciting and interesting, but then in the aftermath of all of that, they had a championship winning car to order at the end of that year, a championship winner and a Bathurst winner in 19, and another championship winner in 20. So that they weren't just regular season cars being produced for that driver in the years that followed. They were all winning cars because Scott won a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And we've actually seen Scott's cars take a bit of a dip recently, and we believe it's a case of out of sight, out of mind. So there was a lot of love for him while he was here. Even in his early days of moving to IndyCar, we still saw a lot of interest in his models here. I don't think it helped that he had a disappointing year in IndyCar this year, but we have seen his models drop off in value across the board.
They'll be back. They'll be back. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. What about the Alan Moffat car, just quickly? That staggers me. But is that because now that car is 45 years on, anything that's HDT, Brock, the timeline is just shifting more and more, or were there lots of them produced? What's your take?
Yeah, that's a reasonable take, Aaron. But I think with this one, what we've seen is, with a few cars, we've actually seen this happen, is there'll be a peak price that really blows things out of the water. And that was in 2024. This model hit $620 and it's been in free fall since. So it's almost like the market gets spooked by a particular sale price and then it just falls off. We can actually track it on the graphs. And I know that may not make sense, because no one's saying you have to pay $620 next time. But it does appear that from that high point, the market has just collapsed for that car, and it's down 31% this year.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's be positive. Let's take the negative socks off and put the positive socks back on. The models that are on the rise, and we've spoken about one of these already. So at number 3 on the rise is that Winterbottom Sandown 500 winning car for the reasons we discussed from 2015. Number 2 on the rise is another Mark Winterbottom Sandown 500 winner. In fact, his first winner, the Cat Ford that he drove with Jason Bright in 2006 to win that classic finish between Brighty and Rick Kelly in the Toll HSV dealer team car. That's on the rise at number 2. And on the rise at number 1 is the sister car to the Moffat car that's falling, is the Peter Brock Sandown Hang 10 400 winner from 1980. That is booming at the moment and on the way up.
It is. That one's up 28% this year. So Moffat car's down 31 and the Brock one's up 28. So, hey, there's still so much love for Brock. We've said it on previous Mini Metal podcasts. Even though the new generations are coming through, the interest in Brock models is still there and is still helping some models achieve record prices. That one peaked at $600 in 2023. It's now a $420 model, irrespective of condition. So maybe there's a bit of upside there in that one.
It's always interesting too when I see cars on the going up or going down list that are tobacco sponsored cars, because of course the cars are sold retail without the decals or decals, depending on which side of the fence you come from. And in the instances of a lot of collectors, they add those later on to make sure that the car is as correct as it can historically be. Do you think that that changes the price for some people, cars that are cigarette cars that don't have all the stickers on them?
We do actually track that, Aaron. So users of our website can actually click the decals or decals button on the sales graph of each product that is a tobacco car, and they can see for themselves how the prices are tracking. But I can tell you off the top of my head, there is actually no difference in price between a decal car and a non-decal car in terms of, there might be on a individual basis, but as we look at the sales across the board, there's no discernible difference in value.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. What about lowest production runs? I've got on my little list here. So what we do with this podcast is there's some elements of the segments that I've got the answers to and some that I don't. But lowest production run for a non-winning Sandown car, and I thought this car looked fantastic, was the Dave Reynolds Craig Baird Erebus VF Commodore from 2016. That was the retro livery that they rolled out. That was that Penrite, sort of like white, red, blue type livery, which looked great, but clearly there's not many of those things floating around at all.
Stunning looking car, 114 made. So, right at the bottom of sort of volumes that we see of any car being made right now. Averages 3 sales per year, and it's currently around the recommended retail price, $275 for new, $230 for used. That's a stunner, Aaron. So, but good luck finding one. Although I did see one come up on Facebook last night. So,
okay, right.
For today.
Maybe someone knows something we don't know. Lowest production run for a Sandown race winner, though. And actually, I'm not surprised by this. It's the 93 Sandown 500 winning Peter Jackson, Glenn Seaton Racing Ford, the Jeff Brabham, David Skippy Parsons car. That was at a time when Sandown, it was kind of on the way back with John Davison, but not every team would go and do the race. That took until the next year to really start to kick in via Tiga. SBS TV coverage was great that it was even on TV, but because it was kind of the second car, Jeff Brabham won Le Mans that year for crying out loud, but he wasn't racing V8s regularly, and I guess that's reflected in this.
Yeah, that's right. They only made 204 of these. And yeah, I'm not even sure many people remember that Braverman and Parsons won this race. We only see about 2 sales of this model each year, and it's currently around $360, irrespective of price. Now, the EB was actually released at Sandown the prior year. So don't be confused with that model. That was the Seaton car. This is the Brabham Parsons car. And yeah, good luck tracking one down.
There's a few different versions of those blue number 30 and number 35 Falcons from Glenn's team. Now, most highly traded Sandown models, there's a few that pop up quite regularly. And unsurprisingly, the top two are cars that have been around for a bit of a time with the famous driver. But I'm surprised by the highly traded Sandown model that comes in at number 3 because it only came out a couple of years ago. And I've got a great memory of this car. The Larry Perkins, Denny Holden Special Vehicles, VL, Group ASV, the Walkinshaw body kit, the fuel-injected engine, finished runner-up to the ANZ Sierra. I'll never forget the commentary of Will Hagan on the ABC race broadcast. Something about Larry Perkins for Australia, bringing it home, taking it to the world. They got outdone by the Sierra that day, but it was a pretty solid debut for that brand new, it was the factory Commodore of the time, albeit it was a new era with Tom Walkinshaw involved. But that's had 82 sales, and it's only been out for a couple of years. Are people trying to snap it up quickly, add to their collection, get it out of their collection? What's the take there when something's relatively new?
We're nearly at a sale a week on that model at the moment. So it really is flying off the shelves. No, the reason I think, Aaron, is we're seeing some heavy discounting on this model.
Ah, right.
Yeah. So, yeah, nowhere near recommended retail price. We're seeing sales as low as $200. Yeah, I think it's a great one to have if you can pick it up cheaply, and there's plenty available for cheap at the moment.
A lot of love out there for Larry, that's for sure. A lot of love out there, as you mentioned too, Detective, for Brock and the 79 winning A9X Tirana Sandown 400 winner and the 78 winner. They are being traded regularly too. So is it a case that there's a lot of those around, a lot of demand for Brock? They're a bit more affordable than the Bathurst winning cars. Is that kind of the reason why they're regularly being traded?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. So they're a relatively recent release, 2022. There's 4,000 of them between the two models, and we are seeing a lot of them being sold with the tobacco decals on them. So, maybe that is incentivizing collectors to pick them up. Between those two, we've seen nearly 300 sales. So they're averaging basically a sale per week, which is huge volume and puts them right near the top of all models traded across diecastdetective.com.au.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but it makes sense with the elements that we just discussed. And Brock A9X Tirana is a classic muscle car. It's not a Bathurst winner, but that does help on the values. If you want a Brock A9X HDT Tirana, but you don't want to pay Bathurst winning car prices, the Sandown winning car is a pretty good one. Now, there's other cars though, Detective, that no one's buying or selling. There's been a long gap between any tracked sales of these cars, and this makes total sense that the Boss Mustang, Alan Moffat's famous Coca-Cola Mustang. Now, there's a version of that car that was made from its debut appearance, which was at the Southern 60 at Sandown in 1969. It's a famous event. It's a starting point for Alan and that car's racing career in Australia. It's been nearly 2 years since any of those have appeared for sale at all. Anyone with one ain't giving them up, that's for sure.
That's right, Aaron. 635 days since we've seen a sale of one of those, and I couldn't even find one online for sale at any price. So good luck if you're looking for one. We're pricing it at $250, so it's not a particularly expensive model, but if you've got one, well, the market's yours to dictate at this point.
Wow, I thought you were going to say it was worth an absolute truckload, but the fact is people Yeah, well, if you've got one and you want to part with it, you could probably just about name your price given the lack of those popping up. The one that is sort of a more modern one that's, geez, this has taken a little while. So at 286 days, that sounds like a long time, but that's nothing compared to the Moffat car. But it's another Ford, and it's Dick Johnson. It's John Bowe, the 94 Sandown 500 winning Shell FAI EB Falcon.
Yeah, great looking car, and obviously the twin to the Bathurst car, Bathurst winner. It set a record price the last time it sold, $800. So we'll see whether what I said earlier about setting a peak price and then falling off occurs for this one when the next sale gets racked up. But only 750 of this one made, which I think is pretty tight for a Dick Johnson race winning model. We're pricing it at $540 irrespective of condition. But once again, very tricky to come by. Can probably name your price up to that $800 mark at the moment.
Well, I do have one in the cabinet downstairs here at the office just quietly. So if anyone's really looking for one, I could be tempted. I could be tempted when you put out numbers like that. Right, let's talk interesting cars because Sandown has had all sorts of, well, interesting cars over the time, whether it's for liveries, for makes, models, drivers, achievements. Number one on the interesting car list, and I'm so glad this has made it somewhere in this podcast, is the mighty Kevin Bartlett 9 Sports Camaro, which Classic Collectables produced from the 1980. That was the Touring Car Championship car from memory. He and Brock had a stunning fight at Sandown in the Touring Car round. KB got on top there at one point as well. That's one to keep an eye on here because that's a Sandown car that wasn't, I mean, that car did race in the Enduro on occasion, but the sprint round was where it's kind of been based in terms of what Classic Collectibles put together.
Yeah, that's right. So this was Kevin's first win in the ATCC, and he backed it up with a win at Adelaide International Raceway, which helped into second place in that year's championship. So Classic Collectibles released 1,000 of these in 2022, so not huge volume, averaging about 2 sales per month. So that is quite frequent, to be honest. It's peaked at $345. And currently, you can pick one up for under $250. So I reckon there's a bit of value there, Aaron.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Always loved the Nissan GTR. At the time, they were, well, let's face it, they weren't loved by a lot of the Group A touring car fans. But over time, they've been like a fine wine and just aged a little bit more. And people have come to go, you know what? Oh, love those GTRs. Those were the days, weren't they? Even though they hated them at the time. But the GIO car that won the Sandown 500, Mark Gibbs, Rowan Onslow, 1991, that's a model that you can pick up. There's lots of factory Richard Scaife GTRs, the factory liveries, the Winfield liveries. This is kind of the outlier to those, but it was a Gibson built car, which a lot of people forget. It was a customer car that was built for Bob Forbes.
That's right. And I think that's part of the appeal of this one is that, as you said, the Nissan Motorsport liveries, the Winfield liveries, they're pretty well covered off with all of the other GTR models. This is the only one that doesn't have that livery. So, and it's a winner. So why not add it to the collection? 1,008 of these made by Auto Art. We see a sale every 2 months or so, but we have only seen 2 sales so far this year. So that's quite low. It's about a $385 car for used. The used price is exceeding new at the moment. So the ones that are selling are being categorized as used models, hence why the price is leaning towards used. And the most recent sale peaked at $450. So not super expensive, but they are up 15% this year. So you might want to jump on those before they accelerate.
It's better, though, than trying to buy the real car, Detective.
Yes.
Let's put it that way, because that car was sold, I think it was last year from memory, into Chrome Temple, which is basically an organization that invests in cars, largely road cars, but occasionally race cars, on behalf of their investors who obviously are looking to put their money into something that will appreciate in value. And if you wanted to buy that GIO GTR, the real deal, I got a funny feeling it's a little bit more than $300 or $400. So getting the scale 1/18 scale diecast model is probably the one that's in our hitting zones for anyone listening to this pod. The other interesting car that's on our list here, and there's a few reasons why I think this one's on here. 2017, Sandown 500 winning Monster Energy Tickford. Well, actually, it was Pro Drive in 17. FGX Falcon, Cam Waters, Richie Stanaway. Their first win in supercars. And of course, Cam's gone on to do plenty more winning. But there is no more monster model cars being produced in the last few years. Is this helping this car because it's kind of where the Cam Waters winners start, and you can't really go and buy any more Cam Waters monster Fords these days?
You nailed it, Aaron. Exactly right. And to add to that, it's one of only 2 Monster FGXs that have opening parts. A lot of them were Apex resin models. So if you want an opening FGX with the Monster livery, or in fact, because they're not going to do the Mustang, it will be the only 2 Monster opening models. This is the one to have. I've also put it on the list because Richie's been in the news recently, and this is kind of the car that I guess put him on the map in terms of obviously his first win, but it led to the full-time drive at Tickford in 2018. So, 330 made, really low volume, and we see about 5 sales per year. We've only seen 2 so far this year, and both were below $600, which I think is really good buying because we're actually paying the current value at $600. Pickup price is $899 in 2024. So you can see just where it has been and where it could get back to one day.
That makes sense. Makes lots of sense to me. Before we wrap up, though, give me your undervalued icon. When you think of Sandown cars, the car that hasn't popped up in any of these lists along the way, what's not got the love that deserves the love out there in terms of Sandown cars? Because I can think of heaps, but what's the one that's sticking out to you?
Where are the HRT fans? Do they even know this car exists? It's the 2016 Tander Luff Sandown 500 winner. The VF Commodore with the green number on the side and the splashes of Monster logo. It's the final HRT race winner. And there just doesn't seem to be the love for this model that I would expect from the passionate Holden fans. So only 348 made, so it is in very low supply. We only see about 2 sales per year, but it's about a $400 model. And I know that's not super cheap, but it's also probably not reflective of what I would expect for the last HRT race winner.
That's amazing. I'm staggered by that maybe it's the fact that Walkinshaw and Holden fans have been in denial that would be the last one, or that there was, the next things to come after that. That's really quite strange, but that might be a pretty handy little buy to invest in for the future. That was made by Bianchi, but I tell you what, they didn't quite nail that car to be true to its one-to-one cousin, brother, call it what you will. Remember that car had the flapping front guard on the straight, and as the air got underneath it, it started rattling around. I don't recommend you do that with your model cars for value, though, listeners. Keep the panels on the car. If you want to make that version of it, maybe have a second car just parked away in the collection to be able to go and do that with. So that is definitely an undervalued Sandown icon. The last Holden Racing team winning car with Walkinshaw's. Of course, the brand did get moved across to Red Bull, but I don't think, yes, it was the Red Bull Holden Racing team or Red Bull Holden Racing or whatever it was. It wasn't the same, though, and it didn't have the same sort of cachet with the Holden fans, that's for sure. But good times for models and for collecting, knowing what you've got, knowing what it's worth. There's so many interesting elements in this. So it's been great to have a look at some of the Sandown cars from over the history and how they're tracking at the moment. But with Diecast Detective, just quickly, before we go, how's it tracking? Lots of cars going in there, new features. There's always something that your team's working on. What are you ferreting away at the moment behind the scenes?
Well, we've just added over 1,000 1 to 43 scale models to the database.
Nice.
So our collectors have been asking for it, and it's only been a matter of time for us to get around to doing it. But we now have more than 1,000 1 to 43 scale models in there. We're adding dozens every day. There's probably another couple of thousand to go. If anyone wants one put in there now, they can't wait for us to get around to it, please reach out to us and we'll prioritize that. But that is probably the number one focus for us at the moment. Otherwise, it's just business as usual, lots of new subscriptions. Had some interesting feedback from members about how shocked they are about how much their models are worth. So I can encourage your listeners to get on there and go and be shocked themselves by putting their collections into the virtual collection.
Good detective work from you and your team. Well done. Keep those 143rds pumping in there. Diecastdetective.com.au. Take up the free trial. Have a bit of a click around and see how it all works. I can't quite guarantee because I can't 1,000,000% guarantee, but I reckon if you're a collector who really loves their collection, you will see the value in getting on board with this and using it for you and your collection moving forward. Detective, well played. Keep pulling gears. Keep driving forward. We'll chat with you again very soon.
Thanks, Aaron. Great to be on.
Great to catch up on the Mini Metal podcast on the V8 Sleuth podcast. It's for Diecast Detective. Head to the website now. Jump on board. Get among the action. Happy collecting and go sifting. See if there's a bargain you might find somewhere in your travels. In the meantime, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time with Mini Metal.